Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual, and I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Paddy Mann. Morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
Good morning. So when we last spoke, Paddy, if you can remember that conversation, we discussed the 8 levers that business owners can pull to improve their cash flow. Now, these are covered in our ebook, which is the Business Leader's Guide to Improving Cash Flow, which you can download at airmanual.link/cashflow/ebook. And we'll share that link in today's show notes. But we then talked about how you can use these levers. And the approach that we shared was to use the 8 levers to review the current situation in your business and the opportunities to tackle cash flow issues, then prioritize those improvements, deliver each of those improvements, and then systemize each of those improvements and systemize regular reviews to make sure that it's ongoing. Today, we're going to talk a bit more about steps 4 and 5 there, systemizing the changes and putting in the regular reviews. So assuming that perhaps you've addressed some of the initial painful issues. So Paddy, why are those steps so important? Why can't we just make the changes, improve cash flow and move on?
Yeah, hopefully the way that you asked that makes it a little bit obvious. And I guess most of us will be aware of it at a kind of a deep level. You just try to ignore it. And essentially it's the difference between fixing a crack in your foundations with duct tape or steel. If you fix it with the duct tape, then great, it might help for the next few months, but it's going to break, and the same issues will crop up. And I'm now remembering my university days where I did we didn't have wireless back then, so you had network cables going all around the house, and I managed to do it very tidily for the whole house by duct taping it above everyone's doors across the whole house, which worked literally for a few months. And then slowly it started to peel back, so I duct tape more, and slowly this mountain of duct tape above my door where I'd also duct taped the router, slowly kind of leaning over you like some growth out of an Aliens film. Anyway, with anything that affects your cash flow, then if you are putting in these quick time solutions, but not systemizing a way of reviewing it, of continuing to make sure the same improvements happen again and again, then you're literally throwing money away. And the impact of throwing money away, you're going to hold yourself back in terms of your growth. You're going to greatly increase your chances of having similar cash flow issues in future, at which point you're going to have a deja vu and you're going to go back and make the same fixes. But while the fixes might work again, it's a bit late, because at this point you've already thrown away a load of cash, which is causing you to have these problems, and you're going to end up having to make more rash decisions and decisions that you didn't need to, that you could have avoided by being more proactive and by putting systems in place to protect yourself going forward.
And it's stressful, right? Like it feels like it's sort of the spinning plates of your business, where you're, in general, that is the nature of it, where you're switching from, my bottleneck at the moment perhaps is marketing, so I fixed that, and now it's sales. I need to sort out the conversion. Okay, but now we've got a delivery issue. I need to sort that, and but now I've got admin and business infrastructure and whatever that needs sorting, and you kind of switch in. But cash flow is one of those areas that when it strikes, it create such a derail for your business. I remember a business mentor of mine saying that not making a profit is like cancer for your business. It will kill you eventually, but not immediately. A cash flow problem is a heart attack. And I think that's the problem, is that when we're talking about keeping your cash flow sorted out long term, you need that to be in good shape, because otherwise the heart attack can suddenly kill your business, or even the preventative measures or reactive measures that you need to take in that compressed period of time can be so stressful for the business leadership, for the employees, and, as you say, can result in lost money and you having to make rash or painful decisions or whatever. So you kind of want that not to be something that you have to react in quite that knee-jerk way. But on the flip side, personally, as a business leader, I find a lot of this stuff around cash flow quite tedious. It's it's things like reviewing pricing and reviewing, can we reduce this, and reviewing our costs and so on. does not fill me full of excitement, and I'm very unlikely to prioritize it automatically above things like, oh, let's do this new marketing campaign, or let's create this new product or whatever, particularly when cash flow isn't a problem. So that's what we're talking about, right? When we're talking about systemizing the improvements and systemizing regular reviews, this is about how do you put it into your business so it happens regardless of whether you're forced to or excited about it, and to do so in a way that doesn't feel boring, stressful, annoying, irritating, right? Whatever, right? So is that right? Like, what do we really mean by it when we're talking about systemizing those things?
Yeah, I love the way you've put that because I know you to be someone who loves
Careful.
running a. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, no, I know you someone to be someone who loves running businesses, and
Yeah.
you love breaking it apart and working out how to put improvements and so on. Yet even you don't love doing a review of the prices.
Oh yeah.
And as someone, if you were to uh, look at the world and say, the only reason that businesses exist is to essentially make as much money as they can for the shareholders. And reviewing your prices is one of the easiest things you can do, one of the quickest things you can do to make more money, make more profit for your business. And yet we hate it because it is a
Yeah.
chore. It makes us uncomfortable. It fixes so many problems. It solves so much stress, but we struggle to associate it directly with adding more value to our customers in some of the way, like making an improvement to your product or improving the communications. When we talk about marketing, it's often about getting better at educating to help people solve their problems. In the long run, it definitely does help because having more money means we can afford more people,
Mm.
which can, there's all sorts of ways that it does help, but nonetheless, it isn't something that we naturally go towards and go, oh, brilliant, Monday, gonna crack on into the pricing review. Great. Um, so when we're talking about how to systemize that, both the doing of it and making sure it's regularly reviewed, it's absolutely about putting processes and checklists in place and making sure that it happens regularly, even though you might not look at it as something that you would choose to do. Because if you don't, it will never happen. So pricing is a great example. It's an example of something that most businesses do nowhere near enough. It's something that really you should be reviewing at least once a year. If for nothing else, it's because inflation is happening
Mm.
constantly. So if you're not touching your prices, then you're simply charging less real money for what you're doing. But there's loads of other reasons. The value that you're delivering will normally increase. You'll have improved your product, improved your processes. Your competition won't necessarily be sitting still. Loads of reasons you should be reviewing it each year. And so systemizing that would be creating a process for how you do that review. So going, okay, we want to look at our existing pricing. We want to look at the what's happening, inflation, competition, and so on, and decide whether we're going to increase our prices. Having a system to make that happen. So a checklist to follow, someone who's going to be responsible. To make it a regular review, we want to make sure there's a clear cadence about how often it's going to happen. I'd say at least once a year. But for certain businesses, particularly younger businesses, then frankly, reviewing every 3 to 6 months is no bad thing. You may say, right, you start your review and go, no, we're happy. That's okay. You've done it consciously rather than just gone, I don't want to think about it. Those are two
Mm.
very different things. So we've got the regular review around making sure that um, this one area, this one lever that we can pull is happening. And then there's also the systems generally to be doing a finance review and be aware of potential cash flow challenges that are coming up. So you can get a clear picture of what's our current state of health. Are there any big risks, issues coming out? Has the health essentially already started to drop in a worrying direction? And you can then be proactive about making changes and doing deeper reviews again, rather than waiting until the pain hits.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll dive deeper into that example of reviewing pricing because I think it works as quite a nice example, and so I'll come back to like what good looks like there. But I think, as you say, it's about having those regular reviews in place and having that regular process. For many businesses, they aren't doing a cash flow forecast, for example, and that's a useful exercise that you can do, but it needs to be done regularly. It's not something that you do and then leave for 3 months. Creating a 13-week cash flow forecast is something that needs updating every week. It honestly wouldn't happen if I had to do it in the business. I've had periods of leading businesses, including ours, where I have needed to do a cash flow forecast, but my focus and my personality and also the nature of my roles in the business mean that I'm often fail to kind of keep those things up. And so having someone else who has a responsibility and a process that they follow every week to update our cash flow forecast and then take some actions accordingly, including like raising the alarm or providing a summary and so on, is so valuable. And that's just like one area, and there's loads of areas that are covered in the ebook of different processes that can be helpful in your business to do this. But having those, as you say, those systemized processes and reviews that mean that you're not having to think, you're not having to motivate yourself to, oh yes, we need to do this, and then you're not having to really think about too much about the how of doing it, because otherwise it just becomes this big thing like, how do I review and update my prices? That's huge. Whereas actually when you start slicing it down, it then becomes a series of steps that you can follow, and in fact even better, that someone else in your team can kind of lead and follow. In our case, a finance administrator who kicks off the process and kind of manages it, and then pulls information from different people to make those decisions. And I think that that's really important, because if you leave this stuff, it's so much more painful when you then come back to it too late. And there are various business leaders that I know and clients of ours and work with and so on, where when we've talked about updating pricing, often they'll say something along the lines of, oh yes, we probably do need to update our pricing, but I mean, how much do we increase it by and so on? They'll do a review, and maybe the answer is like 15% is what they increase it, right? And so they'll say, well, I can't increase my prices 15%. My clients really won't like that. It's a big increase. And so, well, when did you last update your prices? Like, oh, about 3 years ago. It's like, well, so hang on, that's like you haven't updated your prices in 3 years, and now you're doing an only 15% increase. Essentially, I mean, it compounds and so on, but like less than 5% per year increase is really what you're doing there. And of course, the market would have been likely to cope with a less than 5% increase every year, but it's just that you've not got round to it for 3 years, and that's why it feels painful. And so what normally happens is that business leader makes a decision to hopefully update their prices and not leave it, but they'll update it by, you guessed it, 5%. And then leave it another 3 years. And that's the mistake, right? That's the trap that you get stuck in, because it is true that when you go to a customer and say, I'm increasing the pricing, there are certain levels like 15, 20, 25, 30% that feel a hike. And there are smaller levels that don't. And the key is doing it frequently enough so that you don't have these massive hikes, particularly if you haven't got a really good reason for, a good value reason for doing it. If you're not, from your perspective, you're just going, well, costs have gone up, my salary costs have gone up, and so on. If you're doing it and, if you're making, let's say, a 30% increase in pricing, you really want to be able to attach that to, or because we're giving you all this amazing value. If you're just doing it because you haven't updated your prices in 6 to 10 years, then that's a really difficult message, and actually results in a lot of effort, right, in terms of managing that comms. So let's go further with that example and what it or in fact, let's go wider. Like, what does it look like for a company when they're doing a great job when it comes to kind of systemizing their improvement and systemizing regular reviews?
Yeah. Oh, I could speak all day about pricing, and I know actually we've planned a subsequent episode to really dig into how to do a review there, because it's such
we'll go step by step, right?
Great, it's a great example of how to do this, how to systemize it, and one where we know that most business owners will kind of look at it and go, yeah, I'm not doing that. and it applies to me. Looking wider, then, so what does it look when a company's doing a really great job? Essentially, this is something that builds up, and if you do the duct tape solution each time, then nothing builds up, and you just have a fire that goes off, and a constant fire which turns into a blaze that's threatening your home every
Is
year
that
or
what
two.
happened with your duct tape eventually? Is it? That's why it burnt down.
Yeah. Shush. No, so over time, if we're not going for that duct tape approach, and we're putting these processes in place, then you start building up great systems across your business, because cash flow, ultimately, there's so many different parts of the business that it relates to, and I can give a few examples. So, improving your cash flow, one of the things that you might be doing is going, well, there's great opportunities in our sales and marketing process to be selling more, to be selling higher value goods, to be upselling more. So you're improving your sales processes. And then if you're following our guidance here, then you're also systemizing those improvements, and any reviews to continue systemizing improvements. And so your sales processes are getting better and better. And you're, over time, documenting and training your team to work to a higher standard that brings in more money that way. In another area of the business, you could be improving your HR processes, which could be helping to retain more retain more of your employees, to get better results with more junior employees. All sorts of actions you could be taking that, as well as improving well-being and your satisfaction and joy at work, could be greatly reducing your people costs. So your HR systems will be getting better and better, and over time you'll have more and more documented, and individual processes will be done at a deeper level. When you start looking at employee churn, it's all sorts of things, and performance management and one-to-ones and onboarding and recruitment, that over time you'll be taking small actions, but it will build up. And then, of course, there's I could go in any area of the business, but there's plenty of finance processes too. So a monthly review of your profit and loss will be a really useful activity to help you identify any unexpected costs or subscriptions that you should have cancelled. You think your personal collection of Netflix and Disney and so on is causing a bit of a pinch. If you look at all the software as a service subscriptions that you could find, if you haven't reviewed your profit and loss recently, to see actually where are you spending money. And then there's plenty of other reviews that you can be building up and doing regularly in your finance department. We do less frequent reviews of how to reduce insurance payments by comparing the different providers. We do less frequent ones of how to get better interest rates, or how to take advantage of tax rebates. And they're all of these processes which are now in place, and for us happening routinely at cadence we decide, which might be monthly or quarterly or annually, have been put in place following a review like this, kind of starting off and going, okay, where are we feeling pain? Where are the opportunities? Prioritizing some of them, putting those systems in place, and then making sure it's not just a duct tape, which we then have to reinvent the wheel and do it again. We've put a system in place so that thing doesn't happen again. And that takes us in a really, really healthy place. And in the ebook, which you can download at airmanual.link /cashflow /ebook. In that ebook, we've literally got more than 60 examples of processes, of task checklists you could be putting into your business, either introducing them as a way of standardizing things that are best practices that help you to sell more, to reduce your costs, or improving your existing ones. And just working through those areas over time, taking it as inspiration and building this muscle. That's where you get to a great business, because essentially you get to this point where all of these systems are in place, helping you to optimize the cash that's coming into your business, to optimize the protection of the cash from going out of your business, and leave you in a really healthy place.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a few thoughts that come from that. So one is utilizing the momentum that I think, and the motivation that you get when you're fixing cash flow. Like right now, if cash flow is a challenge for you, use this as an opportunity. See this as this is an opportunity for you to fix a load of issues in your business and make improvements in your business that are fundamentally going to change your cash flow picture and reduce the stress and all these sorts of things, but also use it as an opportunity to systemize these things so that going forward, you've got these improvements, and not just the impact on cash flow, but as you say, examples where you improve your sales process that increase your average deal value or your conversion rate or a retention rate or whatever. You want those things ongoing in your business. Use this as the motivation, the momentum to get those things in place while you're interested enough to do it before you move on to other areas of the business. The other couple of thoughts that come is that when we're talking about the systemization, some of it we're talking at the higher process level. So, for example, many businesses listening to this will not have weekly cash flow forecasts, will not have a pricing review process, will not have a effective process that they use for paying their suppliers on a fortnightly or monthly basis rather than paying them basically whenever the invoices come in, right? So there's at the process level, there are processes in you that you should have in your business that mean that you're not having to work reactively, and good cash flow decisions are built into the fabric of how you work. But also there's those next level down, those details, those little changes in the standard operating procedure and the detail of the checklist that make a difference too. For example, it's at what point do you ask the customer to make payment? How do you make it possible for them to make payment? How do you revert, follow up, chase if they haven't made payment or they're not able to make payment at that point? Those little decisions, those little bits of wording that the salesperson might use or how it's followed up make a huge difference in the round in terms of how quickly you're getting cash in from new customers, and as a result, your cash flow position. Those little things, you want that embedded into every part of your business. You don't want that to be something that you have to remind your team to do just when things get hard. Because I've seen so many times businesses that we've worked with, occasionally seen it in ours, but the nature of the businesses we've tended to run together, particularly sort of the nature of the software businesses we've run, we haven't tended to have high accounts receivable, i.e. people owing us, although it did exist a bit with our consulting business, is that I've seen it over and over again, particularly for other businesses I've worked with, where they do a real concerted effort to reduce their account receivable down. They spend the time, like, get the team excited about it, maybe even put on a whiteboard of a target, and they get that value down, i.e. get people paying. And then they take their eye off the ball, they move on to other areas, and over time it creeps up. And a year later, I'm pointing out the same thing on their balance sheet to say, wait, why is that high again? Why is that now 3 months when we got that down to 3 weeks? And that's all about the systemization. So thank you, Paddy, because I think we've really explored how do you go from making the duct tape, the quick improvements, to turning that into something that not just reduces your cash flow issues and prevents cash flow problems in the future, but fundamentally allows you to make improvements to your business that stick, right? And I think that's really, really powerful. So thanks for sharing that. As mentioned, we've got the Cashflow ebook that both contains more guidance on this, the 8 levers, series of questions you can use to identify improvements, and also a long list of processes and guidance around those processes that you can use in your business. You can find that ebook at airmanual.link/cashflow/ebook. I'm also doing an Ask Me Anything, an AMA session on cash flow, where I'll answer any questions that people have got, where you can find out more and register at airmanual.link/cashflow/webinar. And feel free to send questions, post them on social media, etc., to feed into that if you're not able to make it live. But otherwise, thank you, Paddy. We've delved into lots of different areas. One thing that occurs to me, though, is that for some people, they'll be looking at what we've talked about and thinking, oh, I haven't even got the time. Like, I haven't got the cash and I haven't got the time. I don't know I'm even going to find time to read this ebook. And if you're struggling to even find the time to look at improving your cash flow, then you need it more than anyone else. So do check out a weekly webinar that we run on how to free up 15 hours per week. That's basically like nearly 2 days a week of your time to be able to work on the business rather than in it. And ultimately, it'll also help you unlock growth. And I'll share the end-to-end approach that we use in that to help you do that. You can find out more and register for the next one at airmanual.co/webinar. Otherwise, before we close out, if you've got value from this episode, please do share it on social media. Please do take a minute to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. That'll help us a lot. We'll hugely appreciate it. It'll also help other people. You know that there are people you know that are really struggling with cash flow right now, and it could be life-changing for them if there is some guidance from this or other episodes that we've done that could help them, that could seriously have an impact on their lives. So please do help them out by sharing it, and ultimately, we'd love to help more people. So please do that. Otherwise, thank you, Paddy. But for everyone else, until next time, have fun.